The wilderness has a way of revealing what is already there. I didn't understand that when I stepped onto the trail. At the time, I thought I needed answers. I thought I needed direction. I thought I needed God to somehow fix what had become one of the hardest seasons of my life. Instead, He revealed something I didn't even know I was carrying. Welcome to Eremos. Eremos is the Greek word for wilderness. Out here, distractions fade, masks fall away, and God often reveals what has been there all along. So wherever you find yourself today, come walk for a while. I remember sitting on the trail during the second day of a backpacking trip thinking, I didn't want to go forward, but I didn't want to go back. I just sat there. Looking back, that moment wasn't really about hiking. It described my life. The previous year had been one of the hardest seasons I had ever walked through. My father passed away in January. A few months later, my mother went from living independently, driving, and taking care of herself, to spending most of her time unconscious in a hospital bed. My sister and I were forced to make decisions we never wanted to make. Decisions no child is ever truly prepared for. Before I had fully processed any of that grief, life became even more complicated. My family faced challenges that seemed to come from every direction. We lost things we loved. My wife and I lost our jobs. We were told we needed to move. The future felt uncertain. Fear became a constant companion. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, we slowly began pulling away from church. Not because we had stopped believing, not because anyone had hurt us. It just became easier not to go. The people in our church continued to pray for us. They brought us meals. They checked on us. But when life becomes overwhelming, isolation has a way of feeling easier than community. My wife was struggling. I was struggling. But she needed me, so I did what I could to keep moving. Then one night, after a long day of worry and uncertainty, we were lying in bed, trying to fall asleep. The kind of night where you know tomorrow's problems are still going to be waiting when the sun comes up. She looked at me and said something simple. You need to go on a hike. At first I resisted. A hike wasn't going to bring my parents back. It wasn't going to solve our financial struggles. It wasn't going to answer the questions keeping me awake at night. It wasn't going to fix anything. But she knew something I didn't. She knew hiking had always been one of the ways God reset my heart. And she knew I was carrying something more than I realized. She could see that the weight was beginning to crush me. A few weeks later, I found myself standing at the Osborne farm preparing for a 3-day solo backpacking trip. I thought I was heading into the wilderness looking for answers. What I didn't know was God was about to reveal what I had been carrying all along. Before I tell you what happened on the trail, I think it's important to understand something about the wilderness. When most of us think about the wilderness, we think about getting lost. We think about hardship. We think about something to survive or escape. But that's often not how Scripture talks about wilderness. A great example of the wilderness being used is found in Matthew chapter 4. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. Think about that for a moment. Jesus wasn't lost. He wasn't running away. He wasn't abandoned. He was led there. The wilderness wasn't an accident. It was part of God's plan. When you start looking through Scripture, you see this pattern everywhere. Moses met God in the wilderness. David learned dependence in the wilderness. Elijah found restoration in the wilderness. And before Jesus began his public ministry, he was led into the wilderness. The wilderness wasn't punishment. It was preparation. It was revelation. It was a place where distractions fell away and God exposed what was really going on beneath the surface. I didn't know it yet, but that's exactly what was about to happen to me. It had been years since I had spent multiple nights alone on the trail. I wish I could tell you I stepped onto the trail feeling refreshed and ready for adventure. I didn't. I was carrying a lot more than what was in my pack. The trail started gently enough. Mile after mile passed beneath my boots as I made my way north. Nothing dramatic happened. No great revelations, no sudden answers from God. Just silence and hope. I spent those miles praying, thinking, listening, trying to sort through everything that had happened over the previous year. Mostly, I was just grateful to be moving again, grateful to be alone, grateful to be away from the noise for a little while. Eventually, I crossed Highway 421 and began the climb away from Low Gap. By that point, I'd already had several miles behind me, and I felt every one of them. The climb was hard, harder than I remembered. My legs weren't ready. My lungs weren't ready. Somewhere along the way, I realized how much time had passed since I had carried a pack through the mountains. Every step felt heavier than it should have. Every hill seemed steeper than I remembered. Maybe that's because I wasn't just carrying gear. I was carrying grief. I was carrying fear. I was carrying uncertainty. I just didn't know it yet. Eventually, I found a spot to camp. Nothing special, just a place with the right trees for my hammock and enough room to settle in for the night. I set up camp, made dinner, and listened to the mountains slowly settle into the evening. The woods became quiet. Not silent, just quiet. The kind of quiet you only find when you're miles away from traffic, schedules, and distractions. Birds called from somewhere down the ridge. Squirrels chattered in the trees overhead. And every now and then I could hear something moving through the underbrush. The sounds were familiar, comforting even. The mountain was simply being the mountain. As darkness settled in, I sat there listening and hoping. I had spent that day praying as I walked, thinking through everything that had happened, trying to make sense of loss, uncertainty, fear. Part of me expected that being out here would somehow make everything clear. Maybe God would speak. Maybe I would finally feel peace. Maybe I would find some direction. I wanted to feel close to God. I wanted to remember what that felt like. I want to remember wanting to feel closer to God. But if I'm honest, I didn't. At least not that night. Looking back, I don't think God was distant. I think I was. I'd spent so much time carrying grief, fear, frustration, and uncertainty that I wasn't ready to set any of it down. I wasn't running from God, but I wasn't fully drawing near either. I was holding my distance. When I think about that night, I often find myself drawn back to Psalm 139. Not because I was thinking about it then, I wasn't, but because David understood something I was beginning to learn. God already knew where I was. He knew where I had been. He knew what I was carrying. He wasn't waiting for me to find him. He was already there. I just wasn't ready to see what he wanted to reveal. The mountain was quiet. My heart wasn't. Eventually, I climbed into my hammock and settled in for the night. Tomorrow would be another long day. I didn't know it then, but the wilderness had already begun its work. I woke up the next morning tired. Not just physically tired, the kind of tired that settles into your bones and follows you everywhere you go. I took my time breaking camp. Then I took more time than I needed. I ate breakfast, adjusted gear, walked around camp, sat down, stood back up, found another reason not to leave. If I'm honest, I wasn't getting ready to hike. I was avoiding a decision. Part of me wanted to keep going. part of me wanted to turn around and head home. The problem was that neither option felt right. Going forward felt hard, going back felt like quitting. So I sat, and I kept sitting. The hours slipped by. Morning became late morning became noon. A few hikers passed through and I talked to them for a while. Nothing profound, just enough conversation to delay making a decision. Eventually, the trail grew quiet again, and there I was, alone with my thoughts, alone with God. I remember sitting there thinking, I don't want to go forward, and I don't want to go back. I just want to sit here. As strange as it sounds, I convinced myself that if I sat here long enough, God would find me. I wasn't waiting on the trail, I was waiting on God. Looking back, that sounds ridiculous. God already knew exactly where I was. He knew where I was sitting. He knew what I was thinking. He knew what I was carrying. He wasn't the one that had moved. I was. I can't help but think about David's words in Psalm 139. Where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your presence? The answer, of course, is nowhere. God was already there. The wilderness wasn't helping me find God. The wilderness was helping me stop long enough to realize He had never left. Eventually, I came to a simple conclusion. Sitting there wasn't going to get me off the trail. No matter how long I waited, I was eventually going to have to move. So I ate lunch, put on my pack, and started walking. I didn't have a breakthrough. I didn't have a revelation. I didn't have an answer. I just took the next step. The rest of that day was hard. Not because the trail got steeper, not because the miles got longer. The hike actually became easier once I started moving again. But somewhere along the trail, the conversation between me and God became more honest. Or maybe I finally stopped talking long enough to listen. As I walked, I began talking through everything that had happened over the previous year. My father's death, my mother's decline, the decision my sister and I had to make, the losses, the uncertainty, the fear, all the things I had spent months trying to carry. At some point, I realized I was crying. At first, I assumed it was grief, and that would make sense. I had lost a lot. I had every reason to grieve. But the more I talked, the more I realized something else was happening. I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because I was angry. Angry at my mom, not because she had done anything wrong, but because she left. I wasn't ready. I still had questions. I still needed my mom. It wasn't fair. I was angry at my wife, not because she deserved it. She didn't. She was working, providing, doing everything she could to hold our family together. But I wanted someone to blame. It wasn't fair. I was angry at my kids, not because they had done anything wrong. They were kids. Loving, wild, needy, everything kids are supposed to be. They simply wanted a father who was present. It wasn't fair. I was angry at my church. They hadn't abandoned me. They brought me meals, they prayed, they checked on us. I was the one who pulled away. It wasn't fair. I was angry at my friends. I was angry at the circumstances. I was angry at myself. And if I'm being completely honest, I was angry at God. Life had fallen apart. Nothing made sense. Everything felt unfair. And somewhere along the trail, I finally realized I had been carrying that anger everywhere I went. I thought I had come into the wilderness carrying grief. The wilderness revealed I was carrying anger too. Maybe that was the answer to a prayer I had been praying for years. Search me, O God, and know my heart. And that's exactly what He was doing. Not condemning me, not shaming me, revealing me, showing me what was actually there. And once it was exposed, I could finally stop pretending it wasn't. For so long, I had been carrying that anger without admitting it. Maybe I didn't know it was there. Maybe I didn't want to know it was there. Either way, once it was out in the open, I couldn't ignore it anymore. As I walked, the anger began to give way to something else. Grief. Real grief. Not the kind you talk about, not the kind you explain, the kind you feel. The kind that leaves you standing on a trail with tears running down your face. I cried for my dad. I cried for my mom. I cried for everything my family had lost. I cried for the fear that had become part of our daily lives. I cried for all the questions I still didn't have answers to. And somewhere in the middle of those tears, I found myself apologizing. To my wife, to my kids, to my church, to my friends. They couldn't hear me, but God could. And somehow, that was enough. For months, I had been carrying anger toward people who didn't deserve it. People who were doing their best. People who were trying to help. People who loved me. I had taken pain that belonged to no one and tried to give it to everyone. God was the only one strong enough to carry it, so I gave it to him. Not all at once, not perfectly, but honestly. As I look back at that trip now, I realize God answered a prayer that I had been praying for years. Not in the way I expected, not with a miracle, not with a detailed plan, not by removing the difficulties waiting for me at home. Instead, he revealed what was already there. For years, one of my daily prayers has been Psalm 139. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there are any offensive ways in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. On that trail, God answered the first part of that prayer. He searched my heart. He revealed anger. He exposed wounds I had ignored. He showed me things I didn't want to see, not to shame me, not to condemn me, but to begin healing me. And then, almost quietly, he began answering the second part of the prayer. Lead me in the way everlasting. The trail didn't give me a 5-year plan. It didn't answer every question. It didn't solve every problem. What it did was give me the next step. A small seed planted on a mountainside. A simple thought. Hiking guide. Yeah, I can do that. At the time, I had no idea where that thought would lead. I didn't know it would eventually become Eremos. I didn't know it would lead to guiding others into the wilderness. I didn't know it would lead to conversations like this one. I didn't know it would lead to a solitude guide. I just knew God had given me something to move forward. For months, my focus had been on everything I had lost. Now there was a glimpse of what might still be ahead. Maybe you've never spent 3 days alone in the mountains. Maybe you've never carried a backpack through the wilderness. But chances are you've experienced a moment when you didn't want to move forward and you didn't want to go back. So you just sat there. Maybe that's where you are right now. If so, I want to leave you with the same prayer that has guided me for years. This week, find 15 minutes. Find 5 minutes. Leave your phone behind. Turn off the music. Turn off the podcast. Find a quiet place. Then pray Psalm 139. Slowly. Honestly. Ask God to search your heart. Ask Him to reveal what is there. Ask Him to show you what you've been carrying, and ask Him to lead you forward. Not 5 years from now, not 10 miles down the trail, just the next step. because the wilderness has a way of revealing what is already there. It's a different wilderness, same question. What might God reveal in you? Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, grace and peace.